Hello people of the internet, it's Amanda in 4 days of video. I'm here to talk about F4 Thailand's 12th episode. Now, before I start, I just want to say that people might be thinking at this point that I'm just watching this series to find things that I don't like about it. And trust me when I say that I'm genuinely trying every single week to find something that I would highlight that I genuinely liked about the episodes. It's just that I apologize if I'm being a little bit too nitpicky about the themes and the topics, especially because I think one of the biggest reasons is, number one, as I've said in my earlier videos, I'm a huge fan of the franchise, like the F4 Hana, Yori, Dango thing. And I've seen all of the other versions. I did tons of videos talking about, which versions I like the most, some of the things that I like and then like in every single version and stuff like that. And in the earlier parts or in the earlier episodes of F4 Thailand, I was genuinely happy at where they're taking the story. I like the changes that they were doing. I like the symbolisms, the metaphors. And I was genuinely thinking that I might like this even more than the Japanese version, which is my current favorite. But then things started going south and I was just, I'm genuinely frustrated and disappointed with some of the decisions that I made with this particular drama, but I'm still trying so hard to find things to like about it. So yeah, just to put it out, just to be very clear about that, I just want to put it out there. I think my comments for the last episode, I really wanted to like the changes that they did in terms of, Thyme's story and how it's a major difference as compared to like the other versions. I like the touch of, Thyme apologizing to his victims, even if, it's something that wasn't done in the other versions before. But again, I still found a flaw in that, in the way that they deliver that entire thing, because it's very idealistic, the way that every single victim forgave him and everything was just wrapped in this beautiful bow, and we're just expected to move on to like the next conflict just to keep the love story going. So again, and I've been seeing people talking about, pacing and, they have to make do with the time that they have with a limited number of episodes. But again, I still have issues about that, because I've seen how pacing can really work, like how 16 episodes can really deliver in terms of just being too much, especially when it comes to K-dramas, and how sometimes limiting episodes in just a shorter amount doesn't restrict you from delivering a good story as well, as exhibited by many J-dramas. So I couldn't understand the whole like pacing excuse situation stuff. So yeah, and that's the reason why, I have really like a lot of things to say about the series, especially when it comes to last week's episode. Now for this episode, I don't exactly have a problem when it comes to the pacing per se, but my biggest issue would probably be it going on a detour of a trope that I absolutely hate. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, following the events of like the earlier episode, so Thyme is basically engaged to Lita and he got into a relationship with her. I really like the touch that they did in the earlier episodes where Thyme wasn't as rabid when it comes to treating Lita. Like there's a certain playfulness in terms of how they delivered, this cat and dog energy between them, which I really, really like. However, this entire twist of, because Thyme still is in love with Gorya and they're trying to finally shape the love story for after like how many episodes or so. I really hate it when dramas, not just this franchise, but in almost all dramas, all movies, Western, Eastern, whenever they do like a good character, a good female character, and then she suddenly goes haywire just because of romance. I absolutely hate the antagonization of female characters and how they tend to like turn into do a 180 when it comes to their personality just because they're jealous or anything like that. It's absolutely one of my pet peeves when it comes to dramas. I kind of understand like acting a little bit more irrational or acting a little bit more jealous or something like that. But if you have a genuinely good character, which we've seen, is like Lita is very friendly, she's very headstrong, but she also is someone who is compassionate and who's just very sweet. And then she suddenly turns into like this villainous character. I absolutely hate that kind of trope, and I think that's my main issue when it comes to this particular episode. Is in the other versions, so we get moments where, like for example in Hana Yori Dango with Shigeru, she got a little bit manipulative. Like you can see it in her expression that she knows there's something going on between Makino and Domyoji, but then because Makino and Domyoji weren't admitting it to her, she was playing along with that, and she was trying. You can read those scenes with so many different layers. Like you can read it in a way that, she was trying to get them to admit to her, or that because she was playing nonchalant, because again, she was also genuinely enjoying this newfound friendship that she has with the female lead. So there's so many layers in that particular portrayal. Whereas for this one, they peg it as Gorya and Lita were friends for like 24 hours, and then they're suddenly all besties and stuff like that. And then for some reason, like because she finds this whole Gorya Thyme situation really annoying, because again, Thyme promised to commit to a relationship with her, but then he wasn't committing to it because he's in love with Gorya. She suddenly, like, I don't know, like really isolates herself, and then eventually tries to like be all nasty towards Gorya. So, and then eventually like the payoff at the end of the episode is that them being all emotional about this friendship that they had, which they never really had, because again, they just hung out for like a couple of hours or something, shop, gave each other gifts and stuff. And yeah, again, my problem with the series is it always tries to really go with its characters in a certain way, and then they pull back and then expect us to just love this payoff that they're giving. And for me, that just doesn't work, because again, I think the beauty of the character of Lita, in a way, in the other versions, is there was really an established relationship. Like, as much as she was trying to get Domyoji, or the male lead, to love her, she was also trying to push the female lead to admit that there is something going on. Because and I think the problem with F4 Thailand is they're trying to really pose Gorya as this, like, she can't do anything bad. She's always making the right decisions. She's always doing this, that, whatever. Which, again, like for me, isn't realistic, because you have to give dimension to your characters, otherwise they become Mary Sue's. And right now for me, Gorya is becoming this Mary Sue character because she's always very righteous, she's always very this and that, other characters had to be the bad person so that she would be the ideal female lead for the story, which just doesn't really work. I think in the other versions, the beauty of it is we kind of really see how pitiful the character of the fiancé is, because at the end of the day, like, she was the one who the male lead committed to, and that she was the one being treated poorly, and she was just being caught in this entire drama of the female lead not being honest about her own feelings. The idea is not Gorya, for example, being, you know what, you have to solve this first before we get into a relationship. That's not the entire idea of the arc, but rather it was more of them finally admitting that, or her being finally honest about her feelings, and also cherishing this friendship that they have. Because, like, she was being all understanding of Lita, but then Lita on the other, like, there was no actual friendship that happened between them. for it to merit that emotional ending at the end of the episode. So yeah, and I really really hate how they did, like, I love the confrontation that Lita had with Thyme. It was definitely one of the more emotional takes on that particular scene, which also happened in the other episodes where she took off her robe and stuff. It happened in the other iterations, but this one is probably one of the most memorable for me because of the emotions of, again, these female actresses are really owning these emotional scenes. But to me, instead of them ending it at that, they had to like follow it through with that entire conversation of, I'm just gonna have, I'm gonna talk to my parents and stuff like that. And they could have just done it in a way that was a lot more subtle. Like, again, this is where the series just doesn't know when to shut up when it needs to. I feel like they could have had that conversation in another day or like the next morning. Instead of it following that particular emotional scene, they should have just left it at that, like Lita crying on Thyme's shoulder and just being all vulnerable and stuff. And then the next day, she was just being so nonchalant about the entire situation so that it would build up a little bit of a suspense. And then she would say that, or she would call up Thyme and say that, I'm setting up this thing with my parents to talk about our engagement and, just set up the tone and stuff so that, like, it doesn't have to be like every single thing in this particular series they have to like talk about and explain when they don't need to, and when they need to elaborate on something they don't do it. So I think that's another issue that I keep on talking about in my past videos. And again, when the whole like Lita revealing that she wants to cut off the engagement for, so that it would still benefit Thyme's family and the whole like partnership thing without it ruining the entire dynamic of how it started in the first place. Again, it was too much. Like, I like how they tried to juxtapose how she would fall in love with someone who's this, and she's trying to make it so that Thyme wasn't that person, but we have all these flashbacks of her going back to the moments of why she fell in love with him in the first place. But I felt like that was just too much. Like, in the other versions, when the girl did that, when she said that, I didn't want this engagement in the first place, you can see how it is through the expression of the actress that this was something that she really wanted, but she was doing it for the sake of the person of the guy that she likes and what makes him happy, and also for herself. Like, it's her choosing herself. And you can read all that through that scene without it explaining it to your face. But for this one, they really had to go overboard with the ranting, with how noisy that scene was. And it could have made a lot more impact with, just Lita saying that, he's not the person that I would want to marry. And, and the audience already knows that she's lying. She has feelings for him and stuff like that, but they don't have to reinforce it every single time just so we would feel the emotions of what she's going through in that particular moment. Like, I don't know, like, they could have gone with subtlety for this particular scene. You can because it's obvious that she's a good actress given the confrontation scene. So they could have just gone with like her trying to smile, trying to be so happy, trying to be her nonchalant self, saying that, this wasn't an engagement I wanted in the first place. But you can read it through her expression and the way that, for example, Thyme was looking at her. Thyme thanking her for what happened and her answering back like nothing happened. But you can read so many layers on that particular scene, and you can build up so much more emotion on that instead of it like laying it thick. And I think that was my issue with that. Like, it was okay how they delivered it. It's just that it's so in your face and it loses it loses room for the audience to really see the impact of the scene because it's being spoon-fed anyway. And I don't know, maybe it's just my preference as a viewer, but I definitely prefer, you know, moments where I'm just being so engrossed in the scene and you can read it through the character instead of it being force-fed onto you. So if there was one thing that I like about these episodes so far, it's definitely Kevin and Kaning's love story. I feel like they're building up that second couple a lot better since there's more of a transition between like them annoying each other, becoming friends, having these moments. So for me, I'm a lot more interested in how they're going to develop that story, especially since we're finally introduced to Kevin's first love in the narrative, which in other versions is the reason why he became a womanizer in the first place. Like he's still in love with this like other person, and now we finally see her enter the story a little bit, you know, with that subtlety. I'm really liking Win's acting in terms of that particular moment and his interactions, and Kevin and Kaning's interactions. They're definitely a lot more interesting to me at this point than the main couple. So yeah, I feel like they're one of just the very few reasons why I'm still watching is I'm hoping that they don't butcher the second couple's love story. But yeah, so with that said, so as usual, tell me down in the comments below. I absolutely feel like I'm part of the minority who's not exactly enjoying the series so far. But yeah, let's talk it out as usual. What are your thoughts on this particular episode? Let me know. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel and you would want to hear more from me, please hit subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you again soon in a new one.